The price of compassion. The galaxy's mistake. The Interstellar Commerce Guild had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years. They controlled trade routes, regulated technology, and decided which species prospered and which ones starved. Their power came not from military might but from economic stranglehold. Every civilization needed their approval to survive in the connected galaxy. Except humanity. When humans first achieved faster-than-light travel, they arrived in galactic space with wide eyes and open hands. They shared technology freely. They offered medical aid to struggling colonies. They traded fairly, often at a loss to themselves. Within 20 years, humanity had established itself as the galaxy's most generous species. The Guild watched this with growing contempt. "They're fools," Guildmaster Zendar declared to his council. His crystalline body pulsed with colors that translated to disdain. "They give away what they should sell. They help species that offer nothing in return. They're weakening themselves with every act of kindness." His advisors agreed. Humanity's behavior violated every principle of galactic economics. Resources were meant to be hoarded, not shared. Power was meant to be concentrated, not distributed. Compassion was a weakness that strong species exploited in the weak. The humanitarian crisis. The Torvan system was dying. A stellar anomaly had destabilized their sun, and the 7 billion Torvan people faced extinction within months. The Guild offered to evacuate them for a price, complete economic servitude for the next 5 generations. The Torvan government refused. They would rather die free than live as slaves. That's when humanity stepped in. Without asking for payment, without demanding concessions, the human rescue fleet arrived. 200 ships, from massive carriers to converted civilian transports. They began evacuating the Torvan by the millions, working around the clock to save as many as possible. Ambassador David Martinez stood before the Guild Council, his weathered face showing the exhaustion of coordinating the largest rescue operation in human history. "We need safe passage through Guild trade lanes. We need permission to settle the Torvan refugees in the Kepler sector. We're asking as a courtesy, but we'll proceed regardless." Zendar's body flashed red with anger. "You dare to demand anything from this council? You, who give away your resources like water? You who weaken yourselves with every foolish act of mercy?" "We're not demanding," Martinez replied calmly. "We're informing. The Torvan will be saved. Whether you help or hinder is your choice." The Guild's response. The Guild chose to hinder. They closed trade lanes to human ships. They embargoed human colonies. They pressured other species to cut ties with humanity. It was economic warfare designed to cripple a species that had foolishly spent its resources on others. Within weeks, human colonies began reporting shortages. Medical supplies ran low. Food shipments were delayed. The Guild's message was clear: compassion has consequences. But humanity didn't stop the rescue operation. They rationed their own supplies. They converted luxury goods production to essentials. They tightened belts and worked longer hours. And they kept saving the Torvan, ship after ship, life after life. The galaxy watched in amazement and confusion. Why would humans sacrifice their own comfort for strangers? Why would they endure economic hardship for people who couldn't repay them? "They're proving my point," Zendar told his council. "Their weakness will destroy them. In 6 months, they'll beg us to lift the embargo. In a year, they'll be desperate enough to accept any terms we offer." The turning point. 4 months into the embargo, something unexpected happened. The rescued Torvan, grateful beyond measure, began working alongside humans. Scientists shared research. Engineers contributed designs. Artists created works celebrating human compassion. The Torvan gave everything they had to repay the debt they felt. And other species noticed. A small coalition of worlds, inspired by humanity's selflessness, began secretly trading with human colonies. They risked guild sanctions to help the species that had helped others. The underground trade network grew, fueled not by profit but by respect. But the guild saw only continued defiance. Enough, Zendar declared. If economic pressure won't break them, we'll use force. Humanity must learn that mercy is a luxury only the strong can afford. And they are not strong. The guild assembled an enforcement fleet. 50 warships, more than enough to blockade Earth and force compliance. They had never needed military force before, but humanity had pushed them too far. Ambassador Martinez's warning. When the guild fleet appeared at the edge of human space, Martinez broadcast a message that would echo through history. Guildmaster Zendar, you've made a terrible miscalculation. You saw our compassion and mistook it for weakness. You saw our mercy and thought it was foolishness. You saw us helping others and assumed we couldn't help ourselves. His voice remained calm, almost sad. I want you to understand something about humans. We show mercy because we're strong enough to afford it. We help others because we have more than enough. We choose compassion because we've seen what happens when the strong prey on the weak. Martinez paused, and his expression hardened. But make no mistake. We choose mercy. It's not weakness. It's restraint. And you're about to learn the difference. The response fleet. What emerged from Earth orbit shocked the galaxy. Humanity's military fleet had been hiding in plain sight. Those civilian transports that had rescued the Torven? Many were retrofitted warships. Those trade vessels moving through embargoed routes? Armed escorts. The species that had seemed to spend everything on others had been quietly building a defense force that dwarfed anything the guild possessed. But it wasn't just numbers. Human military doctrine was based on thousands of years of warfare, refined through countless conflicts, adapted by a species that had nearly destroyed itself and learned from every mistake. The guild's 50 warships faced 300 human vessels, each one crewed by people who had spent months watching their families suffer under embargo. Each one commanded by officers who had volunteered for rescue operations and then trained for war. Each one ready to prove that mercy was a choice, not a weakness. The message. Admiral Kenji Yamamoto, commander of the human fleet, sent one final transmission to the guild ships. You had a choice. You could have helped us save the Torven. You could have worked with us to make the galaxy better. Instead, you chose to punish compassion and reward cruelty. His voice carried centuries of human history, wars fought, lessons learned, prices paid. We gave you mercy because we believed in something better. You spat on that mercy. Now you'll receive justice instead. The human fleet moved forward, and the galaxy held its breath. For 3,000 years, the guild had ruled through economic power. Now they would learn what happened when they pushed a species that had conquered its own planet, survived its own worst instincts, and chosen to be better than its nature demanded. The guild had mistaken humanity's greatest strength for its greatest weakness. They had seen compassion and thought it was vulnerability. They were about to learn that the species kind enough to save strangers was also strong enough to destroy anyone who threatened the innocent. The age of guild dominance was ending. The age of human justice was beginning. And the galaxy would never forget what happened when you mistook mercy for weakness. The reckoning. The battle of choices. The guild's enforcement fleet opened fire first. 50 warships unleashing coordinated strikes that should have crippled any opposition. Their weapons were purchased from the galaxy's finest arms dealers, their tactics refined by mercenary companies that had fought for centuries. But the human fleet didn't fight like anything the guild had encountered. Admiral Yamamoto's ships moved with a precision that spoke of genuine military training, not the posturing of economic enforcers playing soldier. They divided into hunting packs, isolated guild ships, and targeted systems with surgical accuracy. Within the first 10 minutes, 8 guild vessels lost propulsion. Within 20, 3 were completely disabled. And the humans hadn't destroyed a single ship. They're trying not to kill us, Guild Captain Voradh reported to Zendar, confusion evident in his transmission. They're disabling our weapons and engines, but avoiding critical hits to life support or crew sections. Zendar watched the battle through the command center's holographic display. His crystalline body pulsed with colors that had no translation, emotions the guild had never needed words for because they'd never felt them before. Fear mixed with incomprehension. Why would they show restraint? He demanded. We came to destroy their economy, to break their spirit. Why aren't they retaliating with equal force? The doctrine of proportional response. The answer came through an open channel from Admiral Yamamoto himself. Because we're not like you, Guild Master. You see violence as a tool for profit. We see it as a last resort. Even now, even after everything you've done, we're giving your people a chance to surrender and go home. Zendar's rage translated to bright crimson pulses. Surrender? The guild does not surrender. Then you'll be disabled and towed home, Yamamoto replied calmly. Either way, your fleet is done. The only question is whether your crews live to learn from this mistake. The battle continued, but it was clear to every observer that humans were pulling their punches. They could have vaporized guild ships but chose to cripple them instead. They could have targeted life support but aimed for weapon systems. They could have been merciless but chose to remain measured. The galaxy watched in stunned silence. This wasn't how warfare worked. Species didn't show restraint to enemies who had tried to destroy them. Mercy wasn't tactical. Compassion wasn't strategy. But humans were proving otherwise. The coalition forms. As the guild fleet fell apart, something unprecedented happened across the galaxy. The underground trade network that had been secretly supporting humanity came into the open. One by one, species announced they were breaking with the guild and forming a new coalition based on fair trade and mutual support. The Torvan were first, their gratitude transformed into political action. Then the Vurani, who had watched humans endure embargo rather than abandon their principles. Then dozens more, small species who had suffered under guild economics for generations and finally saw an alternative. Within hours, the guild's power structure began collapsing. Trade agreements were cancelled. Economic partnerships dissolved. The carefully constructed system that had ruled for 3,000 years came apart because humans had proven that another way was possible. The price of pride. Zendar watched his empire crumble in real time. The guild fleet was defeated. The economic network was unraveling. Everything he had built, everything his predecessors had maintained, was falling apart because one species had refused to accept that might made right. Cease fire, he finally ordered. All guild vessels, stand down. The admission of defeat came hard. The guild had never lost. Had never needed to negotiate. Had never imagined that their economic power could be challenged by something as intangible as principles. Ambassador Martinez appeared on the communication channel, his face showing exhaustion but also something that looked like relief. Guildmaster, I want you to understand something. We didn't want this. We wanted cooperation. We wanted partnership. We still do. You've destroyed us, Zendar replied bitterly. You've taken everything we built. No, Martinez shook his head. We've shown the galaxy that your way isn't the only way. That commerce can be fair. That power doesn't have to be abused. That strength can be used to protect instead of exploit. The new order. The treaty negotiations took 3 weeks. The guild maintained its position as trade facilitator but under new rules drafted by the coalition humanity had accidentally created. Trade would be fair. Species could refuse terms without facing embargo. Economic power couldn't be used as a weapon against the vulnerable. Zendar signed the treaty with crystalline appendages that pulsed with colors his translator couldn't quite capture. Humility, perhaps. Or the beginning of understanding. You could have destroyed us completely, he said to Martinez. Your fleet was superior. Your tactics were overwhelming. Why show mercy to those who showed you none? Martinez smiled sadly. Because that's who we are. On Earth, we have a saying, an eye for an eye makes the whole world blind. We've learned, through terrible experience, that revenge and cruelty only create more revenge and cruelty. Somebody has to break the cycle. Somebody has to choose to be better. He stood to leave, then paused. The guild ruled through fear and control. We're offering something different: cooperation, mutual respect, and the understanding that we all do better when we all do better. Your choice is whether to embrace that or cling to the old ways. 6 months later. The transformation of galactic commerce happened faster than anyone expected. The new coalition, with humanity as a founding member but not the leader, restructured trade networks to benefit everyone. Species that had struggled under guild economics began to prosper. Technology flowed more freely. Medical advances reached colonies that had been ignored. And the Torven, all 7 billion of them, thrived in their new homes throughout the Kepler sector. They became humanity's strongest advocates, telling anyone who would listen about the species that had risked everything to save strangers. The legacy. Admiral Yamamoto stood on Earth, watching the sunset over a city that had endured embargo and hardship but never abandoned its principles. Beside him, Ambassador Martinez reviewed reports from across the galaxy. The guild is adapting, Martinez said. Slowly, reluctantly, but they're learning that cooperation is more profitable than exploitation. Yamamoto nodded. And the other species? The ones who joined the coalition? Growing stronger every day. Helping each other the way we help the Torven. Turns out compassion is contagious. They stood in comfortable silence, 2 men who had led humanity through crisis and come out the other side with their values intact. Do you think they finally understand? Martinez asked. That mercy isn't weakness? Yamamoto considered the question. Some do. Others will need more time. But we proved the point. We showed them that you can be kind and strong. That you can help others and help yourself. That the best civilizations aren't built on who can take the most, but on who's willing to give the most. The final message. That evening, humanity broadcast a message to the entire galaxy. Not a threat or a boast, but a simple invitation. To all species, new and old, powerful and struggling, humanity extends its hand in friendship. We offer fair trade, honest partnership, and mutual support. We ask nothing that we wouldn't give ourselves. We promise nothing we can't deliver. And we commit to this principle, that the measure of civilization isn't how well you treat the strong, but how well you treat the weak. We showed mercy because we could afford it. We fought because we had to. We won because our cause was just. But now we offer something more valuable than victory: we offer community. A galaxy where species help each other not because they must, but because they choose to. This is humanity's gift to the stars, the proof that compassion and strength aren't opposites. They're partners. And together, they can build something better than any empire, any guild, or any system based on fear and control. Epilogue: The Teacher. Years later, Guildmaster Zendar gave a lecture at the newly formed Galactic Academy of Commerce and Ethics. His crystalline form had developed new color patterns: humility, respect, understanding. I learned something from humanity, he told the young students from 100 different species. I learned that I had confused weakness with kindness, and strength with cruelty. I learned that the most powerful force in the galaxy isn't economic control or military might. It's the willingness to help others even when it costs you everything. He paused, his colors shifting to something that looked like gratitude. Humanity taught us that mercy is a choice the strong make. That compassion is strength, not weakness. That the best way to build power is to lift others up, not push them down. The guild ruled through fear for 3,000 years. Humanity changed the galaxy in less than one. Not through conquest, but through example. They showed us a better way. And I hope every species in this room has the wisdom to follow their lead. The students applauded, and somewhere across the galaxy, humanity continued doing what it did best: helping, building, and proving that the kindest civilizations could also be the strongest. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Mercy wasn't weakness. It was humanity's greatest weapon. And the species that had mistaken compassion for vulnerability had discovered that humans were strong enough to be gentle, powerful enough to be kind, and wise enough to know the difference.